It's my 96 F150. I've done a ton of mods to this. Carb conversion, 5-speed swap, but front bumper to rear bumper. I've changed a lot of stuff, and I haven't seen a lot of people do these things. So I finally got the truck at a point of completion where I've taken a few test drives, I'm shaking it down, and it's actually at a point now where I can front bumper to rear bumper the whole thing and kind of explain what's been done. Some of the how, some of the why. And so this is a 96 F150. It had a 2.5-inch rough country lift in the back, and then I put an extra inch in the front, so it's 3 inches in the front, just to, I mean, it leveled it out some, made it look a lot better. And it was originally automatic. The automatic transmission and the computer system was failing. It wasn't actually the transmission so much as the overdrive didn't know whether to shit or go sideways, because all the inputs, outputs, basically stem to stern on the truck were starting to go, and they do, you know. Electronics, sensors, things like that, they expire like a carton of milk. So, you know, people say, oh, get you an old truck and whatever, but like 90s Fords, etc., computers, no bueno. So this is the original 5-liter stock. I didn't modify nothing stock. What I did modify was from the intake up. So it's a wind intake, Holley 600 carb, and HEI distributor. HEI distributor, I'm not a fan so far of this thing, just because of the diameter created some issues. Check out my videos. I have playlists of every kind of thing that I've done in the steps, and it's all short, so you can, you know, we're swipe left mentality. So, all right. So to get rid of the fuel injection and all the computer stuff, literally from the front seats back is all almost stock 96, pretty much stock, right? And then from the front seats forward, what I did was I gutted everything out and replaced it with this wire harnesses from a 71 F600. Why an F600? I had a grain truck on the farm and the parts were good, so this was put together remarkably cheap. I can't imagine doing it any cheaper. Even doing it this cheap felt like punishment most days. So deleted all that, converted this, and we'll start. I said front bumper, so this is just trim clad paint basically. So from here, everything's stock. The inner fenders are stock. Here's a modification I did. These support the inner fender, okay? So there's these 2 bolts, and then one, and then these 2 bolts, and then one, and they're solid bolts just like this that undo, and that way I can and I cut this in half, so then that way these drop out really, really easy, because there's a factory, they attach on this lip with sheet metal screws, and it's absolute trash. So much better, much faster, much easier to get in and clean and access, and these pop right out. So that's kind of interesting. I'm looking at a master cylinder. So this truck had ABS, I deleted it. But this case, I full deleted it. So this master cylinder, I bought a parts truck out of a 93 that I got the 5-speed transmission from, and stole a bunch of other parts out of it. This master cylinder being one of them. So this is a 93 non-ABS style master cylinder, and to make that work I also changed out the spindles and the rotors and the calipers and the backing plate and everything that attaches to the axle from the steering knuckle, right? So a little bit of work to get that done. With these 90s trucks, they are different. So an ABS truck has even a different rotor. Not only is the caliper different, the rotor's a different thickness. So, but it's just close enough that if you eyeball it, you'd think it's right. The exhaust is kind of a unique deal. I'll show you. I'll go climb underneath. I have a one-off fuel system. So this was a cheap Amazon bypass regulator, and these do work really, really good, but they don't turn down low because this is for EFI pressure, which is basically all I wanted. I run this thing about 18 to 20 PSI, and then it bypasses. And these are actually the stock fuel lines, so they can be modified to accept bar bend and stuff, but it takes a minute. So check out my videos. I have a playlist on this and the fuel lines, and right. So from there we turn it down to 20, 18, and then I got a deadhead style. And the deadhead doesn't bother anything because excess pressure can just bypass off of this, and you're not putting a super load on this. You know what I mean? Between either one, it's shared pretty decent. So actually it works pretty good. From there I just bent up some copper 3/8 line, and then that's a compression fitting. So compression fittings are the same thread pitch as a 4160 Holley, right? And I did that because it just, I don't know, I wanted to do something different and it looks cool. So, and then from there, HEI distributor, not a big fan so far. These are really big around compared to the Ford design, and I ran into problems. This is a wind intake. This is a SP180, and they're pretty cool. They have a super long runner that runs from the passenger side here all the way to the number one. So they got longer runners. There's, I don't know if you can see, there's an extra 1 to 3/4 inch built-in rise, and then I put a 1-inch spacer in underneath that. But the problem is with the runner, these ones, because it comes all the way across, I had interference problems, so I had to grind in behind here to clearance this, clearance the distributor. Check out my videos. I clearanced everything. Took a little off of everything to make it fit in, and now it fits in good. This was an AC truck, you can see, and I cut it here because this runs straight up and then angles down. And then you're limited, your vacuum advance canister, because these big goddamn distributors has to sit up in here, and it, whatever. You know, like I did it and I like it. It's much better. It's easy to, you know, to get in, to get at this bolt to do your timing, because when this is sitting front and center, then you got to get in underneath that with the wrench and in between, and you know, if the engine's running or whatever, this is just much better. So I had to reconfigure my belts. I also deleted the smog pump down here. Okay, there's a smog pump in the corner, so deleted that. So major belt reconfiguration. And again, if you're thinking about deleting these components, check out my playlist. I have this all on there. So this is an idler pulley to make this whole system work. Originally the belt went underneath this on a smooth pulley. This is a grooved pulley, and then I had to massage it a little. You'll see where I did some filing and a little bit of shimming to get this lined up properly, but it does the job, man. It works pretty good. So far it works pretty good. Like, follow, subscribe if you want to see how long this shit lasts. So, and then everything else is stock water pump, stock balancer. The only thing I did was I took the balancer, I painted it, and then I scribed lines on it and white painted them, you know what I'm saying? So that there's white lines grooved in, easy to see with a timing light, because you have to get down into here to see, you know what I'm saying? So it's nice when it's all bright. So when I deleted the AC, another thing I did, you have a cooler in here. So this went out to here, and then all the way, see the bracket there? You can see the edge of it. It actually there, and then there's another pod that stepped on, and I sliced it down. So I section cut it, put a piece of sheet metal in, and put it in. And I have a lot. Look at all the room I have to get in back here, because these engines, after working on Chevys and stuff, these Fords, especially the 90s ones, they sit back into the firewall. So now I have wicked access. And you see how I run all my lines and cables, and everything's good. Holley carb. I modified my electric choke to manual. You can see, chopped her down some. I hacked the bottom off of it so that I can get at the fast idle adjustment screw easily. And put a little bit of a relay center underneath here for my fog light, headlight, high beam, low beam stuff. And okay, so front bumper, I think that's everything underneath the hood. You'll see when I do the thing, I even modified the wiper motor so that it runs old school. Because I used the old school harness, I used all the gauges, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. We'll go underneath here quick. So you can see the spacers I've added underneath the shock and the spring. So those are rough country units. Like I said, they came in a kit, and that changed the geometry of the I-beams and stuff. And then I also used an Amazon, not an Amazon, but whatever, the eccentric for adjusting your camber caster to make it work, because it was beyond what it should have been when I got the truck, and now it's pretty good. And you see our stock fuel lines, nice stainless ones. They used to do a different angle. They used to jump over up onto the transmission from there. So again, a little bit of modifying, industrial clamps, heat wrap. You see my exhaust goes down. This is 2.5-inch stainless, and then where it comes here, it meets up into, this is 3-inch. These were my side steps. So where you see chrome, these were leftover of my side steps, which I didn't like. So I cut them up, and then the 3-inch glass pack is a combination. There's some side step, and then that's 3-inch exhaust off an old stock car that wasn't using, you know. Fuel filter. I had to change the fuel filter, and I've done enough of these that they actually sit back. So they're in between the fuel tank and the frame rail, and they have special fittings that save a lot of explaining, suck a dick, right? So no more sucking a dick. And barbed end, hose clamp, and I brought the fuel filter where it's easily accessible, easily changed, even moved the whole bracket, everything, so still holds the loom, everything looks factory, nice stuff. So all the lines are in good shape. Drive shaft, now this was the original 2-piece drive shaft that came with the truck, so when it was an automatic, and I was thinking, even taking quickie hillbilly measurements, that I would have to, I had an aluminum drive shaft that came with this transmission, and I was thinking I was probably going to use that because I'd have to for sure modify at least this front shaft, you know what I mean, from the carrier bearing forward, because they're different lengths. Another thing you have to do is they're different yokes, so I finally just said to hell with it, let's put this yoke from the parts truck transmission, which works with this, the automatic one won't work, so I put this on, set them up, and son of a bitch, the difference is in the yoke, so I can run this. I didn't have to get a drive shaft built, which was like, holy shit, that's awesome, right? The more money I can save, the better, because the shit adds up. And this was done really, 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 really cheap, and pretty happy with how it turned out, considering how much money I had to work with. The exhaust, it's a different way of doing it, so I made a custom bracket up here that utilizes this, right? A little extra steel here, and then it's heavy bolts, and then this is you see up in here, this is a big rig stack bushing. Okay, so there's rubber up here, it's shouldered where it goes down through with rubber and a metal sleeve, so you can tighten it up tight, and it's super heavy duty. And usually a big rig truck on a stack, they have a row of like 4 or 5 of these fuckers, you know what I mean, to keep the stack in place. You only need one. I mean, this is super good. Just enough flex, and then I can run a nice tight tolerance. Another good thing with these exhausts, check out my videos where I built this, but it's just the right height so that you can actually clock your tailpipe to different effects. So this could be clocked to come straight out of the corner here, and it could be clocked 100% upright to give you stacks. So it's outside frame rail exhaust, but it runs the stock manifolds, and in this case the manifolds help quiet down the stock car glass packs. So 3-inch glass packs have a really unique sound, like it really, and so far it's not so bad. Like at low RPM and idle, it hushes it up right pretty good between the manifolds, but then the big mufflers, because they're bigger and I don't move that much, as long as you're not moving a lot of air, it takes a lot before they start snapping and rapping. So yeah, you can kind of fool the cops a little bit. So that's got our exhaust, that's got our underneath fuel. So let's go in the cab. All right, pretty much stock. The door panels are the shit, so I studded them, and I put lock nuts on them so they pop off easy. Again, this whole thing is so that when shit goes wrong, which it usually does, I can get in there and get on top of it right away. The extended cab seats in these trucks are wicked. You can see down here, that's an under-seat subwoofer. It's an 8-inch sub, but I mounted it up like I did so that I can still flip this seat into a bench seat, or if you got a crash, these fold into a nice little cot. This down in the corner, that's our fuse panel. That's our glass fuse panel from our F600. So, and still managed to keep the kick panel the way it is. So we got our stock dash, and then this is the heater control system out of the same F600, because I used the wire harness and I used as much as I could out of that. That is so, and then I used that control, added cables, and then I cable control converted the 96 heater that's existing. So the 96 heater is a 4-speed heat, so the fan runs on 4 speeds. These run on 3. So what I did, I just added a toggle. So on turns it on to low, and then you have your additional 3 speeds on here, and it's just heater, right? Which is perfect. These are easy to fix. These are easy to troubleshoot, especially if you're running if you carb converted one of these. They're an electric vacuum operated system, so you can get a vacuum leak underneath your dash for your climate control that affects your engine. You know what I mean? Like a vacuum leak anywhere is a bad thing. So that's unmetered air bypassing the system. So when I did this, I had that in mind, so that the vacuum system is limited, right? And it's just a better system. This down here where the lighter is, that's again climate control. So there's a flap door down there that recirculates inside air, or you can open it and bring fresh air in. Here's our 5-speed trans tunnel. I feel sorry for these poor bastards that don't do it this way. You'll see them where they roll the mat or the carpet up to get at transmission stuff. Parking on a hill like I've had it overnight and stuff, there's a bit of a leak. These 5-speed transmissions, they have plastic plugs that push in the back of the top shift tower cover. And, if you want to get at that, you have to deal with seats and carpet and console. And this way I just unbolt the perimeter. So Ford used a nice galvanized cover, right? And then because I got rid of my lighter here, I still have a lighter in there for 12 volt access. But then I drilled a hole in the cover and I used the lighter because it looks cool from the F600. So again, I can plug my phone and my accessories in there. So this is the gauges out of the F600. They have this is actually a Stewart Warner vacuum gauge, and it's got a low pressure indicator light down here, which I repurposed as a charge indicator light to run my Excite wire for my 3G alternator, which has been converted to run off the 70s harness. So if you want to put a 3G alternator in your 70s car, check out my channel. I have a playlist on that. These run my fuel pumps, because this is a dual fuel truck, so there's a front tank and a rear tank, and they both have their own fuel pump. So bing, bing, right? And they work independently, and I wired them off of their own relays, so they're 100% isolated. So if something melts or something breaks or something off, on, flip. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I was thinking World War II aircraft, military stuff. And here's our dash. So this is the plastic dashboard, but then the gauges here are out of the F600. Now, because the Mazda 5-speed trannies use a computer to run modules and it's electronically communicated speedometer, to run the analog style speedo that was in here originally would have been a big expense and a big amount of work. And you can buy a kit and a controller to do it, but like I said, it's expense. So, and it's got a nice detail on it. So what I did was I took a GPS cheapo Amazon China speedometer, which it works really good. Like, I had no expectations of this working out right. And it's the exact same size as the original speedometer, to the point where if you look in here, you probably can't even see it, just on the top edge of this speedometer is the original high beam indicator. So, and it sits perfectly right where the old one did, and the indicator still works. Everything's cool. With the 3G alternator, I just disconnected my charge thing, because they work differently. You'll have a problem. So if you ever do this, you just disconnect it, and then there's a kit or some way to do it. I'm not there yet. Fuel gauges, that's an interesting deal. These dashboards the vintage use instrument panel voltage regulator. So, and these are basically a 6-volt gauge, and they use this voltage regulator. It's more like a flasher to pulse 12 volts to make this work. But with my senders that are modern style 12 volt, it didn't jive. So I put a new style voltage regulator on this that's adjustable from 0 to 14 volts or some shit, whatever. They're cheap. And then this here is front tank, rear tank. Okay, so that's for the gauge, and then all that works. That's about it. I still got to dial in my oil pressure gauge. I know I have good oil pressure. It's just, you know, I've changed so much shit that I'm still kind of tuning everything up. And then all of this is off of the 70s truck. So again, 70s Ford wiper, but controls a 96 wiper motor. But what I did is I just gave it, you know, high, low, low, high. There's 2 speeds. That's all it gets. And then the washer fluid works off of here. Headlights, pretty basic, right? But old switch. They didn't change the switches a whole hell of a lot. And then I'm running the old ignition. So this is a 1-key operated thing. My truck somebody tried to break into it one night when I was sleeping in it. And they had a hell of an awakening. Anyway, I had a hell of an awakening, and they ran like motherfuck hell. But so because of that, 2 things, I had to run this ignition, but then I'd have to get a new door key cut and new locks. So I took the locks off of the 70s truck, and check out my videos. I made them fit in the 96. It does work. So now I have 1 key that runs everything. So that's cool. So now instead of getting all that done, I just get a 2nd key cut. This is where your original fuse panel is. And then what I did, it's now a relay center. So I have, for my stereo, CD player, audio, relay, fuel pump 1 and fuel pump 2. And it's fucking pretty clean. And like, as far as the wiring install and all the butchery I've done, at least it doesn't look butchered, you know. So that's cool. Anyway, I've probably eaten up a hell of a lot of time. But it's a cool truck, and you know, if you have one of these trucks or you're thinking about getting one, if you're thinking about getting an old Ford, I would stay away from the 90s shit. I would get a bullnose. But if you can get a 90s thing, check out my channel, because you're dealing with a lot more plastic. The difference between a bullnose and a 90s Ford truck, 90s Ford truck, a lot more plastic, a lot more computers, and a lot more just, they started to do a lot of stupid things. And anyway, check out my channel, like, subscribe, and I doubt anybody watched this long, but if you did, thanks for hanging in there.